Welcome back to the Gotham Sports Machine. I'm your host, Jack Healy, joined by my co-host, Mark Healy. Today we're going to talk some fantasy football. How are we feeling today?
I'm feeling great. I mean, it is fantasy football draft season. Everybody's getting ready. We wanted to have a fantasy expert or two on today to talk wide receivers, but everybody's doing drafts, during the day. So it's hard for those guys to break off. But, we reached out, we read everything that they write, and we listen to everything that they do. And, Jack won our league last year, so he's as expert as anybody. So I hope we help people out today. I really do, Jack, because there's a lot of mistakes people make when they're drafting. Sometimes they don't even know, what kind of league they're in. You ask them, "Oh, is it PPR?" And they're like, "What's that?" So hopefully, the type of stuff that we're talking about today doesn't just help those people that know their stuff and they're getting ready for their drafts, but also those people that are just starting out and learning, how to draft for fantasy football.
Yep, and PPR is kind of taken over. I mean, point per reception, it's a league where guys throw the ball. Everybody, especially like you could see it even when you just look at the rankings, how many more receivers there are. And there's a lot of running backs, but especially like when you look at value, I mean, there's so many guys that could be really good this year that are down on the board
Right.
because especially the money, I mean, the money these receivers are getting is insane now. Everybody wants to see big touchdowns being thrown. These giant 6'5" behemoths that can run 4.3, 4.4.
Right.
Like everybody wants those kind of guys, or just a guy who can run a 4.2. Like you're seeing teams every single year spend high draft capital on receivers. And the Browns drafted two receivers pretty high this year. The Jets drafted two receivers pretty high this year.
Right.
So you're really starting to see it not even just in fantasy football, in real life football, just the demand for receivers. And it's also, they're a lot more reliable. I mean, not reliable, but fantasy wise, I'll always defer to taking top receivers over top running backs because especially if they have a good quarterback, like outside of injuries, those guys are usually pretty safe. Like running backs depend, I think, pretty heavily. I mean, not even I think, like they do depend heavily on the offensive line and how
Right.
good the team is in general. You could be a really good receiver on a terrible team and still put up sick numbers. It's a lot easier for
Right.
that.
Like George Kurtz, who are our fantasy expert that we had on a couple of weeks ago, talking about running backs, and no team has just one running back anymore either, and it's so much harder to kind of grade those guys because it seems like every team has three, and week to week, you're trying to determine which running back's going to get the touchdown chances because they don't all do. And so, you can have these wide receivers like fantasy and real life football, never really kind of connect because you could look at a team and say, oh, they have this, they have that, and they're a winning team. But fantasy wise, maybe they spread the ball around so much that it's hard to gauge. You're almost better off, like picking, wide receivers that are getting targeted a lot because they're on a terrible team that has to throw the ball 70 times because they're always down by three touchdowns by the second quarter, you know? So you really can't, you know, fantasy rankings are not the same as ability, I guess is the point I'm trying to make, right? I mean, does that make sense?
Yep. I mean, I agree. And also, but it's also like great players on great teams are still the best thing to have.
Right.
Like
Sure.
a great running back on a great team, even though they might have a good passing game and might still throw the ball, like you still want to be a part of that healthy offense. Like you'd rather
Right.
a team that actually is going to consistently be like in the red zone and in scoring position than a team like the Jets. You don't make like Geno Smith is like he's not a bad fantasy quarterback. because
Right,
he'll throw the ball 30, 40 times a game with a decent completion percentage. And some of it might be the other team, but he's gonna get your guys' numbers if you have guys in that offense.
right.
Not a
And
good team,
right, but Garrett Wilson is a guy that is, getting his catches, getting his yards, getting his touchdowns, even with a terrible quarterback. That the Jets haven't had a good quarterback in God knows how long.
but I'd also like the Rams passing offense for so long has been money. It's
Right,
like you get any receiver in that offense with some talent, they're gonna put up numbers.
right,
Whether it's been Puka, Devontae, Cup, like those top guys just consistently put on numbers. They're also great receivers, but like you can always bet on Sean McVay to throw the ball. Even a guy like Tyler Higbee has been like a viable tight end just because of how much they throw the ball.
sure,
So
yep,
sometimes it's also just drafting based off a system is never that bad of an idea either. Like when you
right,
know
right.
coach likes to use certain guys in certain ways, we're gonna be talking about like Mike Evans and AJ Brown, who are like these guys are on new teams, but they're also joining good offenses with good coaches that are gonna like they went out and got those guys for a reason. They needed that type of receiver, and they're gonna go out and use them.
Right.
And AJ Brown has been getting a lot of love, and he's like a conscientious like top 10 kind of guy this year.
Which is weird why he wasn't ranked. We looked at, I did some homework for my column that's coming up this week, the Gotham Gridiron column in the Wave and at GothamBaseball.com. And, AJ Brown is not ranked by ESPN as of July 8th. He's not ranked in the top 10, which is weird, right? Isn't that weird?
Yeah, they have Rashi Rice, which is like I don't love it because Rice is he player wise he's really good and
Right,
he's really the only top guy on that Chiefs team that's gonna get all the targets. But Mahomes is coming off injury. Who knows who knows what they're gonna look like in the beginning of the year.
right.
And also who knows if this guy's even gonna keep himself on the field. He's gotten arrested like three, 4 times in the past 2 years.
I know. It's rough.
And most of it's been like nonsense. It's not like
Right,
so like when it's stuff like that, you just never know when he's just gonna.
right. But it's almost like having too much information too, though. Like when you're figuring out. So let me just run through this real quick for those watching and listening. So ESPN as of July 8th, and it was a staff thing. It was like all the different guys at ESPN. So they had Puka Nakua number one from the Rams, Jamar Chase from the Bengals at number two, Jackson Smith. How do you say his last name?
Jackson Smith and Jigba.
Yeah, right. From Seattle, Amon-Ra St. Brown with Detroit, CeeDee Lamb, Dallas, number six. I thought this was high. I know you love this guy. It's Justin Jefferson. I think that's high for a Vikings team that we have no idea how they're going to be offensively. That's high, but we could talk about that. Drake London, our guy, at number seven for the Falcons. Nico Collins, which plays into my team a little bit. Rashee Rice, as you brought up, and Chris Olave with the Saints. Of course, we hate the Saints, but he's a damn good receiver. And with the way that New Orleans is sadly improving, he's going to be a pain in the neck for the Falcons this year, but he's probably going to be good for fantasy owners. So outside of what we already discussed, who's in that top 10 or do you think that these guys are ranked right? Who's not in that top 10 that you think should be there? And is there anybody in that top 10, Jack, who you think, really shouldn't be in that ranking at all?
Oh, it's not really like who shouldn't be. I mean, you could throw guys like Pickens in there. You could throw a guy like AJ Brown in there. But I think AJ Brown does belong to be in there above other guys. I mean, he's had like last year, people are talking like even the past 2 years, he's been talked about like it's just not really that good. Like he's kind of washed. He's just not as good of a player anymore because of how good he was the first 2 years in Philadelphia.
Right.
Like the last 2 years, he still put up like 1,000 yards and 7 touchdowns. Like that's a solid receiver one. Most guys would die for that in a good offense. Like just because he's putting up 1,400, 1,500 yards the years before and a lot better of an offense, I mean, it got kind of cluttered. Maybe it was personalities, maybe it was Sirianni just wasn't calling the right play. I mean, you had three, four different offensive coordinators in that time too. So
Right.
that you had no cohesion from year to year in that offense. Outside of the players, I mean the base of the core of the team stayed pretty similar, but just Devontae Smith really started to take his targets
Yeah.
and started to even look better at times to the point where Philly's like, all right, let's move on from him. And Vrabel has always been a big AJ Brown guy. I expect him to not only feature him in the offense, but kind of unlock what we saw early in those Philadelphia days. And that his first year in Philadelphia, he was a monster.
Yes, he was.
Top five receiver. He put up like 1,500 yards, over 10 touchdowns. I think if not only can he bounce back, but if this Patriots team is rolling like it was last year, I think he could get back into that top five conversation.
Look, I certainly agree with you. I mean, every point you're making right there makes a lot of sense. And he's one of those guys. Look, he may have been a pain in the ass in the Eagles in the Eagles locker room. But when you go to the Patriots and you have a chip on your shoulder and you have a good quarterback, they throw the ball. They play a high level of football, especially after last year. It would be crazy to bet against AJ Brown. I think that he's a guy that if you have a chance to take him, maybe not in the first round, but certainly in the second round, I would definitely take a look at him in that spot. It's interesting. When we were looking around and talking about different things, I remember, Joe Pisapia, who's been on with us. He's, of course, the author of all the fantasy black books for football and baseball, and he's one of the best out there. And what his draft strategy, and I think you agree with it too, is that almost like that zero running back kind of mentality, where he wants to pile up as many wide receivers in those first 2 or 3 rounds as he can, and really maximize that flex position, with a wide receiver rather than something like I would do is, my flex guy, I would think that, either a running back that catches a lot of balls, I try to outthink myself, but really that strategy of, like getting as many of those, top wide receivers in those first 3 rounds, that's something that you agree with, right? Like that's a smart decision to do in a PPR league.
Yeah, but it's also PPR. So like again, running backs that can catch the ball, that's really like the gold. That's the gold mine that everybody's been, especially over the past 5, 10 years.
Yep.
You find a running back that could catch it. Like Christian McCaffrey was ridiculous last year. He's the league winner because he had 1,000 yards and he was a check down PPR merchant. Like
Right.
every game, he was getting three or four of these little rinky dink screen passes and it's just absolutely feeding points off of that.
Yep.
So I'm not going to be completely like on the side of no running back, but if you're in your first 3 rounds and it went like you get like AJ Brown late first round, Mike Evans late second round, and then like I don't know.
Has Stephon Diggs signed with anybody yet?
No, he hasn't. But who even knows? Like again, he had a good year last year, but he was a drama-driven receiver. He really
Right.
hasn't. He's had all these different like court cases and just nonsense going on around him. I think he will end up somewhere. He's too talented not to.
Right.
But to like really look at him fantasy, like that's more of a late round guy.
Right. Right. Right.
Like it's
what about your boy Jacoby Myers? Like
he's been an interesting option. Like beginning of last year, he wasn't relevant at all because he was still in the Raiders and he didn't want to be there. But the second he got to Jacksonville, he was balling. Him and Trevor Lawrence looked like they had a real connection. So I mean,
yeah,
like you see a guy like Jacoby Myers, fourth, fifth round, just sitting there. No one's really looking at him. I mean, both of those, I really liked Parker Washington in that Jacksonville offense as well. He was a monster for me at the end of last year. Might have won me our league. And he had some game, and he had like 2 or 3 games at the end of the season where you were just like who is this guy?
right,
Parker Washington?
right. There's always
And
a guy like that. There's always a guy like that, that somebody who's really pays attention to the waiver wire, somebody who really pays attention, every week and looking at the stats. That's how you win leagues, when you grab guys like that, and that, because you keep some fluidity, right? You have some spots on your roster that you can, move guys around. That's how you win leagues. When you find a guy that nobody else is looking at, and they have a sense of, maybe this is a guy that could help me. Of course, that's burned me 1,000 times because I'm never right about those types of guys. But really, if you really are on top of it, you can't just, you have to watch games too, right? Isn't that a big part of, isn't, I mean, sometimes it could fool you, but isn't that a big part of, being able to recognize talent during the season? Forget about the draft, like during the season. Isn't watching games, something that can really help you out as well?
I mean, yeah, if you're just a complete box score, like, oh, he had this, and this. He must be great. Like, that's just a bad job. I mean, there are things you can see from watching the game that you just can't, you'll never be able to tell from the box score. Again, like Parker Washington, like if you were like you didn't if you watch him, you're not like, oh, there's nothing crazy jumping out at you. But when you watch a full game, you see how much Trevor Lawrence trusts a guy. Like that is so big. When you see a guy consistently being looked at in an offense and being trusted on big downs and big plays, and that trust is being like confirmed by making big plays, like that's a huge thing for fantasy. Like again, targets are huge, PPR is huge. So when you're consistently being looked at, and that might be not like it could be shown in the box score. Obviously, you see targets, but sometimes plays that are guys are being looked at aren't. They get blown up. Like they might be a great. You might see a wide open touchdown, and the quarterback might have missed it.
Right.
So, yeah, watching games are huge, especially when want to talk about watching college games to get a look at some of these rookie guys.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's a lot more of a crapshoot. That's a lot less like you can watch a guy in college and be like, oh, this guy's a great player, and then he gets drafted to a team that's not really going to use him, or who knows what happens with these guys sometimes. They get to the league and it's a different ball game. They start getting pressed, tossed around the field, and just some guys can't handle it. So I like this rookie class of receivers. I think it's not as highly elite talent-wise as some of the other ones we've seen in the past, but there's a lot of guys that are going to be starting receivers. I
Yeah,
think it's
and in a dynasty league that you and I play in, for people who don't know what a dynasty league that basically is that you start a league. How long have we had this league? 3 years, 4 years?
this is going to be year three.
Year three, right? So 3 years ago we had our initial draft, and you keep that team. I mean, you have roster spots. Obviously, you could move guys, trade guys, and do stuff like that. But you basically have your team, and then that's why the rookie class, or guys coming out of nowhere that maybe weren't drafted 2 years ago. That's when knowing who's who and what's doing what, and these guys coming in. to the league is so important. And ESPN, Mike Clay, I actually, I went to Mike Clay, not for any particular reason. He's an ESPN guy, obviously, but his top 10, he had Carnell Tate from who's with the Titans, Jordan Tyson, number two from New Orleans, another New Orleans guy, Makai Lemon from Philly, KC Concepcion from the Browns, Omar Cooper Jr., as you mentioned before, but the Jets, Denzel Boston. He's a legacy, right? Isn't his dad Daryl Boston from the MLB? I don't know. I just said the MLB. Oh no. See, hanging around with you is the worst. Jeremy Bernard, Pittsburgh, Chris Bell, Miami, Chris Brazell, the second from Carolina, and DeJon Stribling for San Francisco. Um, I mean, again, you've seen a lot more of these guys than I have. I only watch Notre Dame. I don't watch anybody else. I don't care. But who do you think of those guys that pops out at you as someone you'd like to grab? In our 3 round, dynasty draft.
Well, Casey Concepcion absolutely killed Notre Dame when we played him week two. I mean, that was one of the toughest losses I've ever watched in my
Oh,
life. Last second,
ugh.
oh, horrendous. But
Cost us a shot at the national championship.
yeah, but as far as like the top end guys, I'd really be looking at. I mean, it hurts and pains me to say because it's the Saints, but I really like Jordan Tyson. I like
Yeah, me too. I mean,
he's got the young quarterback. He's got basically, I mean, he's got a lot in front of him, but no real competition other than that in the offense. He's a big dude. He can do everything. I mean, he's a good route runner. He's good after the catch. He's good. He got good hands. Like he checks almost every box when you're looking at a receiver.
yep. But
It's just,
Omar Cooper Jr., he could really help. I think he'll help the Jets,
yeah. I mean,
especially he has Garrett Wilson playing on the other side of him. So it's not like and the Jets didn't they grab a tight end too? Didn't they grab a tight end in the draft?
yeah, I really like him, Kenyon Sadiq.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, look, Geno Smith stops getting pulled over for speeding. Uh, look, am I confident that the Jets are going to be good? No, but I really like the way this guy drafts Moogie. I think I kind of like some of the moves he's made.
Yep,
You
the
know,
roster's definitely improved. I mean, obviously you need to solve the biggest. You got a quarterback,
right?
but the skill possessions are definitely better.
Hmm.
You just you need to see improvement from the defense. You need to see like somewhat of a presence of their like they've had good front sevens in the past. It really wasn't evident at all last year. So you need to see some kind of like pass rush. But the biggest thing really is these skill guys. Like you need to see some like
Yeah.
legitimate offense. Like especially with I mean they have talent now. You got Garrett Wilson, you got Omar
Yep.
Cooper, you got Adonai Mitchell, Brees Hall, Kenyon Sadiq, Mason Taylor. You got like a decent core of guys around Geno Smith, but Klubnik is also I would like to see some at some point a little Cade Klubnik
Yep.
action.
We'll see.
Yeah. And as far as
Now,
the other rookies,
wasn't the Saints quarterback? Didn't they kind of make fun of the Saints when they grabbed him in
I
the
made fun
draft?
of him, but he was like
Yeah.
23, 24. I mean, it never makes sense to make fun. I mean, it's nice to have the younger quarterbacks, but at this point and at this stage of the NFL, it's not. Like there are some quarterbacks that can handle it, that are physically ready, mentally ready to be thrown in the fire at 21, 20 years old. But that's like less than 1%. Maybe you find one quarterback every 5 years that can do that.
Right.
Most of these guys, they need a year or two
Yeah.
to learn the NFL,
Right.
to learn the speed of the game. and then get acclimated with an actual offense.
Right.
So to take a guy who's played 5 years of football and like experience is so key when playing quarterback. This
Yep.
guy's seen so much football already. He's coming in. He didn't have to start right away. Rattler got to take some of the early hits, and he looked good. I mean, I remember watching him at Notre Dame, and he was making some sick throws with his arm, making some really nice arm angle throws. And I was like, yeah, this guy's good. This guy's a legit quarterback.
Yeah.
Was I like, oh, Shug is gonna be this elite first round
No.
quarterback?
No.
No. But was I
Yeah,
like,
but
oh,
I
this
think it was
guy?
don't you think it was because the Saints expected, the Saints or everybody wanted Shador Sanders to go there, and because they didn't pick him and they went with Shug instead,
No.
do you think that had anything to do with
Sanders
it?
went in
Why
the
they were
third
down on
round.
that?
Shug went way earlier. That was they. Everybody wanted Shador Sanders to go everywhere.
Right. I guess.
Any team that didn't have a quarterback that was like viable, it was Shador, Shador. I mean he should have the starting job in Cleveland this year.
We'll see.
He looked solid at times last year on a terrible
Yeah,
team.
he had some moments. Yeah, he
He's
had some
throwing to
moments.
bozos. Now they actually have like went out and drafted two receivers early
Right.
in Concepcion and Boston. Boston's a big dude.
Yeah.
He could be a sleeper. Like right away, he looked good in camp, and everyone's like, "How did this guy follow them?" You got to see him do it in the real game.
Right. But that's the
But
thing about, as you said, it's such a risk, with the rookies. But when you're in a dynasty league like ours, or anybody else out there that's in a dynasty league, like rolling the dice. I mean, I have Malik Neighbors. I drafted him as a rookie. I drafted um, Marvin Harrison Jr. as a rookie. And I've had mixed. I had Garrett Wilson when he was a rookie. So I've had mixed, results with those guys. But again, it helps when you have seen them play a little bit, so you get a sense of what kind of expectation can I have. Does this guy have big game catchability, like big spot catchability, talent? And that's the thing that separates these guys from even guys who have like 4.2 speed. When they have that size and they have those hands. Julio Jones, who is maybe arguably one of the top five receivers of all time, did not catch a touchdown in his senior year, or maybe he had one. And I remember to this day when the Falcons drafted, Julio Jones. A lot of people were kind of questioning the move.
they also traded up for him.
Exactly. So, and obviously, turned out he's pretty awesome. But it's just funny how the fantasy rankings are almost, in my opinion, sometimes more accurate than some of the draft experts. Sometimes, what do you think about that?
I mean, at the end of the day, every expert, every ranking is gonna have some personal bias in it.
Sure.
You're always gonna see one or two things where you're like, what? But I mean, it's personal preference. Like
Right.
you're looking at the list of guys, you're seeing what they did last year and previous years, and you're taking a gamble on some of them. Be like, oh, I think he's gonna have a breakout. Oh, I think this guy's gonna. I mean, it never makes sense to me unless you see like a clear injury past or like a clear like he's not gonna get looks to be like, oh, this guy's not gonna have a good year. Like, I'm not really looking for like, I mean, obviously you can look at a guy and be like, I don't want to be a part of that, and I'd rather be in other places. I'd rather look at other guys, but it's hard for me to like look at a guy and be like, oh, this guy's gonna suck this year. Like, especially how do you know? How do you like nobody he's seen any are you at his practice? You watch him every single snap at practice. And even then it's like you gotta let the season come and then Once the preseason's over and the real season hits, it's like everything is just a big reset. And obviously the great players will be great, but even then, nothing is set in stone. They play the games for a reason.
And the other thing too is, you can't get all caught up, with those first 4 or 5 games in the season, because especially with the lack of preseason, these guys don't even, a lot of teams don't even play their starters during the preseason, so there's no reps. So, like game one, two, and even game three, week three, sometimes those games are still, guys learning how to play with each other. The practices now are like a lot of them are no contact practices. So these guys, especially those guys coming into the league, they really have no idea, what it's like to play at this level. So, you have to be patient. That's the other thing too with these drafts. And you get a guy, especially if you're in a keeper league. If you draft a guy and he's not good right away, you can't give up on him, right? I mean, you got to have some patience.
Yeah. I mean, how many times have as a guy just fallen through the cracks and become just this amazing diamond in the rough? I mean, how many people gave up on Jacoby Myers last year and
Yep.
traded him? And then he had a great end to the season. He might have won some leagues. So not only is patience key, but you really have to be following everything just a little bit and paying attention to like not just injuries, but like what's going on in the league. Is a guy getting in trouble? And is it a like game to game basis? Like some of these, how many times on a Thursday night game you got some random guy getting thrown in the game, like Jacob Tongs when Kittle got hurt. Niners throw him in. He had like 30 points in a week or two. Some of these guys, they'll get spot starts and just go bananas because they're in a good team and they're filling a role of a really good player. Like he's George Kittle for that night. Sometimes it doesn't work out so well. Sometimes,
Right.
like I remember last year, there's a Cowboys receiver supposed to slot right in. I think it was Tolbert, Jalen Tolbert looked like he
Yep.
was going to be the receiver one against the Jets. And then Ryan Flournoy gets like 15 catches for like 130 yards. Who is that?
Exactly.
And Tolbert
Exactly.
has like one catch for 2 yards.
Right.
Like sometimes you really just don't know who's going to get the looks, and you just got to really be paying attention to who's good, who the coaches like, and who's going to get that start. Because especially receivers, it could be anybody's day.
Right. And another thing that people have to be on top of, going into your drafts is who are those wide receiver twos and threes, that now are wide receiver ones and twos because of free agency or trades or, a guy retired or whatever. I mean, I think about guys like Alec Pierce from the Colts, right? Isn't he the wide
Big
receiver
name.
one now? Isn't he wide
He's
receiver
got
one
to
now
be.
for the Colts?
He's got to be. They just gave him like $40 million. And he did get a little surgery in the offseason, so should be good to go come week one. But that contract was crazy.
Right.
He got a lot of money, and they let Pittman go, who, I mean, Pittman was their guy. Pittman was a very reliable receiver. You put him in the slot, he's like 6'3", 6'4". He was your guy across the middle. Now Pierce is not only going to have to kind of fill that role, but also be the number one outside guy.
Right.
Going to be a big responsibility, but if he can fill that responsibility, he could be a fringe top 15, top 10 receiver.
Yep. Certainly a guy to look for, like in the late second round, third round. If it's between a running back and him, that's going to be a tough decision.
And as far as, I mean, this is a little more like it's a homer and like the Falcons receiving room is very up in the air. You know Drake London is the number one guy. You don't even know who's playing quarterback right now, which is another reason why it's like, can we even trust anyone outside of London? And even Pitts is like, some people are all in on him this year. Some people are still. The jury's been in deliberation on Kyle Pitts since he came into the league.
Yep.
So outside of London and Pitts, you got guys like Zachariah Branch, rookie. Really like him. What role is he gonna have in Stefanski offense? Jahan Dotson, gave him a little bit of money to come over and be that receiver too. Can he finally show that talent? And he really looked really good. He caught like 6, 7 touchdowns his rookie year. Never really did anything after that. Washington never carved out a legitimate role for him. I also just never had like an offense that suited him. Like he was always all over the place with 3, 4 other guys.
Right.
Now he finally has a role where he's prominent. He is the number two receiver. Only guy that really is competing with him is Zach Branch, who's a rookie. Maybe that one of those guys is worth a late round flyer. You got like some of these guys, again, they came over in free agency. They got a little bit of money. You pay a guy, you're gonna want to see how he is on the field. You're gonna
Right.
want to see how he fits in the offense, especially early. So some of these guys are worth taking a look at. And
Well, look, it's just one of those things. It's like, you try to give people as much information. You're trying to get as much information as you can. I know for myself that when I think about the NFL season and I think about fantasy, it's almost like I almost don't even I never root for my fantasy players because it usually goes against my rooting interest for my teams. And that is the most difficult thing for me. As a fantasy guy, like again, I have Shug, I have Saints on my team. I don't want to see the Saints do well ever, but it's almost like I guess it's a solace if your team
yeah,
stinks. At least your fantasy team is doing well. But last year I had the Falcons killing me and my fantasy team killing me. So
hopefully it's a better year for Marky.
let's hope so. Oh, that's what I wanted to ask you. Why is that's my last question for you today, buddy. Why is Nico Collins so high when CJ Stroud has really kind of been up and down as a quarterback in this league? And I have CJ Stroud, so that's why I'm asking. Um, how is Nico Collins rated so high where CJ Stroud is not exactly, Aaron Rodgers in Houston?
Well, I mean, Jefferson's ranked right with him, and who knows who's Jefferson's quarterback's going to be. But
That's true. That's true.
because both of them have also shown it doesn't matter who's at quarterback. I
Right.
mean, with Davis Mills at quarterback, Nico Collins was still going off. Like when you're that good at receiver and nobody can guard you, especially when you have like you kind of need the height to go with it when
Right.
you don't have a quarterback. Some guys are able to overcome without the height, but when you're tall, fast, and can win any route, it's like it just doesn't really matter. As long as you have somewhat of a viable quarterback, you just need to be able to get the ball. And Nico Collins has been an absolute monster the past 2 years when he's
Yeah.
gotten the ball.
Yes.
So, I mean, it doesn't surprise me that he's a top 10 ranked receiver. Like, I would have more faith in a Nico Collins than a Rashee Rice just based off of what I know I'm going to get
Mhm.
and just based off of the fact, like, Rice has also been a little injury prone. I mean, Collins got beat up a little last year too, but
Right.
I'm gonna bank on CJ Stroud. I mean, he wasn't great last year, but I mean, even his worst years, he's still been right around the top 20 quarterback for
Well, he
fantasy.
was better last year than than he was the year before. The year before, that offensive line was so bad. They really, I mean, he got lit up.
And it wasn't much better last year, so
But it was
hopefully we
better.
can,
It was still
yeah.
better.
And they also got a little bit an improvement in the run game, adding David Montgomery.
Yep.
So hopefully, I mean, I
I
like
just
Stroud. He just he got a lot of good grace after that rookie year, and then he got a lot of hate. So now, I mean, he's kind of not as I feel like people are like on him. It's a big year for him to like kind of just push through. I mean, you have that good of a defense. Basically, all they have to do is take care of the ball on offense.
yeah. Well, look, I let's put it this way. I can't wait for football. It can't
Yeah.
come soon enough. This has been such a disaster of a baseball season. I can't wait for football. I can't wait.
Yep.
I know you're the
Sure.
same way. I know you're the same way. I
Yep.
can't wait. It can't get here soon enough.
I cannot. Well, this has been another great episode of the Gotham Sports Machine. Follow us on YouTube, Spotify, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. We're everywhere. And we'll see you guys next week.
Take it easy, Jack.